I was the shortest kid in my class, and not even out of just the boys. I was shorter than the girls of my age. Whilst everyone else had had a growth spurt, there were even guys who were literally 6 foot, they had beards. I still looked like I was 11 or 12 years old, like a little prepubescent boy with a high-pitched voice. I remember going to my high school prom, so everyone's around 16 years old, and in all of the pictures that we got taken, I was the shortest one. I was even shorter than my form teacher, who was like a little blonde woman, like 5'3" or something. It did used to get to me, I won't lie to you, and I'm not gonna say to you like, just be confident, bro. But I did end up discovering something that helped me, which was more of a positive mindset. Instead of getting depressed about something that I couldn't change, I started getting hopeful and positive about something that I could change, which was my physique. I thought to myself, okay, if I can't get taller, I could still go build an aesthetic body, have like one of those really attractive physiques that at least would boost me up in other areas. It was maybe luck that then I hit my growth spurt when I was about 17 years old, and I went from being around 5'2" or 5'3" all the way to about 6'1" in just a couple of months, and people thought that was insane how I grew so fast. Aside from that, I built a pretty good looking physique, and it definitely helped me to feel more confident. And I'll even go as far as to say, I know a lot of scientists will disagree, I actually think that getting into the gym culture and lifting weights probably helped me to grow taller, because I started eating more protein, I started eating more calories, I started exercising and getting healthier. So in this video, I'm going to discuss what you can do if you're a short guy, the kind of workout routine and diet and so that you could start getting into to level up this other area of life, which is your physique. And I'm even going to go through a few unproven methods to get taller that I personally think would probably work. They might not, I'm not making any promises, but if you just are willing to try anything to get a bit taller, you might just want to try these and see if they work for yourself. If you don't know me, my name is Hamza, and I've helped 2 million guys just like you to improve their lives, so you can subscribe to this channel if you want to. Why should you get jacked if you can't get taller? I actually think you should build muscle if you're tall, if you're short, it doesn't fucking matter. I just think all guys, and even girls, can really benefit from having muscle and strength. But particularly if you are a shorter guy, or maybe you're just like, no offense, like genetically kind of ugly, your face is all fucked up or something. At the very least, if you can build a 10 out of 10 lean, aesthetic, sexy physique, it is still going to help you make progress in becoming more attractive. There's lots of guys out there who are short or they don't have attractive faces, but if they've got a 10 out of 10 physique, it still gives women something to be attracted to. So if you relate to this, here's what I'd recommend. Get onto a high protein diet immediately. That's where you eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight that you weigh. So when you step on the scale and it says 125 pounds, eat 125 grams of protein per day. And as a side note, the weight of the sort of meat that you could eat is not actually the same as the amount of protein in it. Like one raw chicken breast might weigh 100 grams, but it actually only has around 30 grams of protein. So just go and be a bit of a scientist, like a curious guy in the kitchen. You can download apps like MyFitnessPal to track things, like you can scan barcodes to see just how much protein there is in food. Because if you hit a high protein diet, it's going to help you with your muscle gain. But I am absolutely sure that it will help you to grow taller as well. Like I said at the start of this video, I wanted to give you some weird tips that probably have not been like scientifically proven to make you taller, but I just feel like it would. And if you're willing to try anything, you may as well try these, because it won't take much time and it won't hurt you. So the first thing is a high protein diet. The second thing is eating what I will say, what's a good term for this? Like the foods of a revolutionist, the foods of strength, which are eggs and meats. These are the foods that 100% make you into a stronger person. It's just a fact. For the last few decades, and probably in your mind, eggs and red meat has been scrutinized and said to be unhealthy and cause cancers. It's just now happening that the FDA in America, they're changing all of the guidelines because it's actually been proven eggs and red meat are basically the healthiest foods you could possibly eat. Now that like America's having like a new sort of healthcare system with the person who's in charge of the healthcare, like RFK, they're now actually promoting the truth. Eggs are one of the most nutritious foods out there, and you'll see a lot of based kind of like attractive, jacked, confident, traditional kind of people agree. You'll only ever see these skinny little dweeby, dirty vegans, and maybe people who are quite ignorant and overweight disagree with this, and they think that eggs and red meat is unhealthy. And I'm afraid to say, just between us two, this might be your parents. Chances are, if you're a young man who's watching this, your parents will probably have a problem with you if you eat more than like 2 eggs per day. I hear this all the time. When I speak to young guys, they'll say like, oh, my mom won't let me eat more than 2 eggs. So I'll give you the same piece of advice, which is a bit disrespectful, but I think it's worth you doing this. Cook the eggs or the meat yourself. And when your parents eventually catch you and they're like, wait, why are you eating more than 2 eggs? Didn't you know that was unhealthy? The way to navigate that is not to try and educate them and have an argument where they're of course going to be a tyrant and say to you that they know more than you do, that eggs are actually unhealthy because they've seen their like fat doctors say that it was. You just act like a simpleton. When they catch you and they're shouting at you for eating more eggs or red meat, just shrug your shoulders and go, oh, I was hungry, sorry. That's it. You don't get into the argument. You don't try and, oh, you know, the FDA has actually approved, like, you don't try and fucking argue with them and say that, oh, but Hamza said, like, you don't try and do all that. Just shrug your shoulders and say, oh, but I was hungry. That's it. Just avoid the argument. Act like a little retard who's just hungry for some eggs or some red meat. And I guarantee if there's some kind of food that would aid your growth, it would be these. By the way, if you like reading and you want some action steps from me, just go click the top link in the description right now, which is my email newsletter. I send an email like once or twice a week with some action steps, some knowledge and everything. So maybe when you're drinking coffee or you're on the way to school, you can just read that and it might be an extra boost to your self-improvement journey. So just go click that link right now. There's other habits that you can do which I think will encourage your height as well. Sleeping as long as you can and trying to improve your sleep regularity, which is what we spoke about on the first video on this channel. So just go have a look at that. And also things like sunlight. Like, think about it. If there's something that would promote your height growth, it would be these healthy things like sleeping long enough, eating healthy food, getting a ton of sunlight and hard exercise, lifting weights. Don't believe the narrative, like this dirty vegan propaganda that lifting weights stunts your growth, that eating meat is unhealthy, that sunlight is bad for you and it can cause cancer. More and more it's coming out that all of these natural things like getting sunlight without sunscreen and eating eggs and meat and sleeping longer is all so vital for us. But in the last few decades, there's been such a weird propaganda against these things. So make sure you avoid that and you lived more like one of those based conspiracy theorists. And there's one extra thing I think could make you taller or at least look taller, which is stretching, particularly doing what's called a dead hang. So if you get onto a pull-up bar, don't pull up and don't even activate your traps, just completely hang as if you're dead but you're holding onto yourself. And maybe I can get my editor to show you a video of someone doing this. Your spine decompresses and lengthens when you do this. If you go try this, like the next time you go up to a pull-up bar, set up your phone behind you and record, and then hop on the pull-up bar, just hang, completely relax, and you'll notice that your upper body starts stretching and gets longer. Now that's not going to stay permanent, but I have an idea that all of us are a little bit shorter than we should be because of our modern lives where our bodies are so like constricted. Let's say you are absolutely supposed to be 5'9". You might look and be perceived as you are 5'8" just because of this shortening, because of like the bad posture we have, where if your neck is slightly forward and down, you're slightly shorter there, and if your body's slightly curled up, you're slightly shorter there. So technically this won't increase like your max height, but it will basically get you to your maximum potential, which might be like an extra inch taller than you are right now, but you've just not realized. Because there's probably some days you've maybe noticed where you just feel like you're standing taller, and you actually, like, there's a friend that you always compare to where you feel like you and him are at the same height. And then there's other days where you've noticed that that friend seems a little bit taller than you, right? It's interesting, like your height doesn't really change, but it's interesting that some days you do notice that if you feel taller or shorter. And I think it's because our body can kind of shorten if we're not standing up straight, if we're not stretching out our spine and our hips and all those things. And an extra idea to make you believe this is if you look at some videos of really stiff people or old people, you notice that they're all hunched forward. And technically they've gotten shorter because of that. If you took that old person and stretched them out, he'd technically be taller. And you might think, well, no, that doesn't count because that's how tall he was anyway. But not really, because he was walking around shorter. So what if you're supposed to actually be 5'9", but you're walking around and you're perceived by everyone as like being 5'7" because you just don't have good posture and you haven't like stood up straight and stretched out for a while. I don't think there's much evidence to prove me right here, but it'd be interesting if you just keep that cue in your mind to stand up straighter and to stretch, and especially do the dead hang and let your upper body stretch more, and to really, like, you know, improve your posture, make sure your neck is up a little bit, and just see, because you might actually end up getting like an inch taller just because your posture was kind of bad and you didn't even realize. That was all the tips that I have, so you can leave this video if you want, but I just want to get a little bit more serious here, because with insecurities like height or with other things that you can't really change, like your race or your ethnicity or those kinds of things. There's so many guys, they're allowing themselves to feel bad about these things. They're allowing themselves to wallow in their own pity. And I just don't think that helps you in any way, because one of the things you have to absolutely believe is that there is someone with the same circumstance as you, but who has achieved more than you have. There are short guys who have beautiful wives. There are Indians who are billionaires. There are Pakistanis who are very attractive. There are fat guys who get tons of girls. All these things that we think are the circumstance which stops us from getting what we want. There's someone else who has the same circumstance as us and they have what we want. So why can't you be the exception? Because someone else has. It's possible. Someone else has the exact same circumstance as you, and yet they've become the exception and they've gotten what you want. So I'll open up a bit. You know, when I was in high school, I was short as well. But what I was more insecure about compared to my height was actually my skin color. I thought that if you were brown skinned, you were just deemed as ugly and unattractive, and that girls weren't attracted to brown guys. I had seen like a ton of propaganda against brown people, against Muslims. You know, this wasn't far from 9/11, and so the whole culture was that of like being against these like immigrants who have come into this country. Like I was in the UK. My life experience somewhat reflected that because I had never had a girlfriend. What I didn't realize was having this belief in my mind that, okay, if you're brown, you're not attracted to girls, was actually blinding me from the possibilities that were there. It was on a day with this one guy named Zayn Malik. He was a singer in this band called One Direction. I think he was like 13 or 14 or something. Like, you know, he was like a teenager. And on one day, they went like super viral. And multiple girls from my school downloaded a picture of him and uploaded it to their Facebook page. Like, that's what you do like back in the day. If there was someone hot or something, you'd download it and they would put like, oh my God, he's so hot or whatever. And I remember scrolling on Facebook that day and I was like my heart was beating fast. My cheeks were getting red thinking like, but he's brown. Like, he's literally from Pakistan. Like, that's crazy. Like, his skin tone was like quite similar to mine. And something clicked and I was like, you're not unattractive because you're brown. You're just unattractive and you can work on that. Like, he's got nice hair. He's lean. He had a chiseled jawline. And I started to think like, yeah, I could actually get those things as well. I was just like, you know, this sort of learned helplessness, just thinking, oh man, I'm brown, so there's no point now. You know, it's just not going to work. The same way that you might be with your height, like, oh, I'm sure it's just not going to work. But if you took away that circumstance that you can't change, there's tons of things that you can work on. And you know what I'll say? The final thing I'll say before we close off this video, just a few years ago as a grown man, I logged into my old Facebook account around that time. And I scrolled down my Facebook feed for years and years and years and years. And there was a trend which you probably don't know about. Maybe there's something similar now, but basically someone would write a Facebook post saying, like this, and I'll give you a rating. I think there's similar stuff that maybe you guys do on like Snapchat or some shit like that, right? And I must have like liked a few of those posts when people were doing it. There was multiple girls who were giving me ratings of 8, 9, and like 9.5. Because I still remember these girls, right? They were like, you know, cute and everything. And a couple of them, like I think 2 of them literally said like, you should DM me, you should pop up. There was girls who were publicly writing on my page that they wanted me to message them and to get to know me more. And they could have just been polite or something, but you know, at least that's what they said. And I never actually saw that. Like, I was on Facebook a lot as a teenager, as you know, a lot of guys are on social media. But it's so interesting that I could not tell you that I actually remember seeing anything like that, where some like cute girl in my class or in my year group had ever said anything to me like that before. It's so interesting that my perception of those times was blinded by the idea that, oh yeah, girls don't like me. That even when there was a girl who was showing some kind of interest, my brain didn't even pick up on it up until as an adult I ended up seeing the post and thinking, I actually had a crush on that girl and I never once like messaged her or told her. She publicly wrote on my page that I should message her and we should get to know each other more. And it, like, you know, like again, she could have just been polite, but at least there was potential there. Do you see why this message is so important? There's opportunities that you're blind to right now because your mind is just focused on the idea, like the belief that, yep, I'm short and I'm not attractive. I'm brown and I'm not attractive. I'm black and I'm not attractive. I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. You're blinding yourself from these opportunities that are occurring around you from this false belief that does not serve you. I want you to know that in this video and all videos that I post, I have high expectations for you. I'm not gonna go easy on you and tell you it's okay to be a loser, because if you're watching content like this, you are an ambitious young man, and I see my younger self as the kind of person I'm giving advice to. So I hope that you can accept a bit of the tough love that I give out, because I'm certain that the kind of guy you are who watches these kinds of videos when you could be jacking off and playing games and watching entertainment content, if you're watching something like this, you're getting serious in life, and I commend you for that, and I'm gonna hold you to these high expectations, which I believe that someone like you will meet. So I'll see you in the next video. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.